Good morning, everyone. When I was growing up, my dad had the problem of getting into credit card debt, and it got bad to the point that he used it to help pay off debts in terms of everyday, monthly rent and everything. So the problem with that was that eventually he reached the limit and he couldn't spend anymore. And at the same time, they had a high interest rate, and that interest rate made it hard for him to actually make any progress on paying it back, because he would pay back a certain amount, but the interest rate would just about cover that. And he had a tough time making ends meet. And it took us a really long time to get out of that. The problem with that also is that it applies to what we're going through right now as the government, is we've reached the fiscal cliff, which has become known as the fiscal cliff, which is the debt ceiling. We've reached $16.4 trillion in debt to other countries, and also from investment bonds. So we have to find a way by the end of this year to find a solution to this problem. And if we don't, there will be a high increase in taxes and automatic budget cuts that will hurt the economy in terms of Social Security and Medicare, and entitlement programs and non-entitlement programs will be affected by this. So in this speech, I will argue that Obama's fiscal plan will help keep the economy out of recession. I'll be arguing three main points. First, I'll argue that the current status quo for dealing with the budget is not the way to help keep us out of the recession. Second, I'll argue that Obama's fiscal tax plan will help keep us out of going into further recession and help bring back the economy out of this debt ceiling. And third, I will argue that making cuts to entitlement programs such as Medicare and Social Security are not ways to help reduce the deficit. So first, let me go over what the problem is with the status quo on how to deal with the fiscal cliff. Right now, if no action is taken by legislators to help reduce the deficit, the terms of the Budget Control Act of 2011 will go into effect. Basically, about a year ago, we rose the debt ceiling because we had the same problem last year, and instead of facing it like we are now, we decided to raise the debt ceiling one more time by $1.2 trillion. Now, the catch was that if by the next year, when we reach this debt ceiling, if we didn't find a way to drop it, there would be automatic tax increases and at the same time deep budget cuts to programs such as the defense budget and Medicare, Social Security, across the board budget cuts. So but at a time like this, making cuts like that and increasing taxes on the economy will not help at all. It'll probably throw us back into recession. And according to an article by how it will affect the middle class, according to an article by Mary Jo Kraneker, published in 2012 with the fiscal cliff looming, if no action is taken by the legislators, we'll see the middle income households will see an average of $2,000 per year more in taxes annually. And that's minus budget cuts to Social Security if you know of anyone who does receive those checks. So now that I've gone over what's with the problem, I'm going to explain to you. I will argue how Obama's solutions to the problem will help reduce the deficit. Obama's plan basically is to increase debt, increase the amount of taxes on the wealthy, while keeping the same tax rates for the middle class. Because right now, believe it or not, we are experiencing tax cuts. So the taxes are actually lower than what they should be right now. And also the problem with the tax increases are at the same time, those tax cuts are about to expire. So it'll feel like double taxes basically for the middle class. And basically Obama's plan is to renew those tax cuts for the middle class, but let those tax cuts expire for the wealthy, and also have a slightly higher tax increase from 35% to 39.6% on their income. So with those tax increases, it should be able to help create enough revenue to at least reduce the debt by $1.2 trillion over the next decade. And so So now that I've told you how that Obama's fiscal plan can help reduce the deficit, I'm going to go over how making cuts to Medicare, such as making cuts to entitlement programs such as Medicare and Social Security will actually stagger the economy in the long run, even though it seems like taking the money out of entitlement programs such as that may help, being put in other places such as the debt. But that's actually not the case. In fact, without Medicare, many jobs will be lost in healthcare. In fact, according to an article by Jeremy Blazer on MD.com, according to a study by the American Medical Association, 496,000 jobs will be lost in healthcare, and there will be a 27% cut in wages to physicians treating Medicare patients. So obviously 496,000 jobs lost in healthcare does affect our economy, and the thing about healthcare is that it is required because the demand for people being sick will always stay the same. I mean, people will get sick, people die, and we need nurses to do those jobs. And also making cuts to Social Security is a bad idea because many veterans and disabled veterans rely on that for their income because some of them can't make ends meet after they get out of the war. In fact, without Social Security, without Social Security, the elderly will have to work longer, and therefore the jobs won't open up for the younger generation who are getting a degree in that field. Therefore, that will also stagger the economy in terms of finding jobs, because the retirement age will basically be raised for the elderly. And also, according to an article by Dave Blake, on an article called on a website, Paralyzed Veterans of America, veterans, disabled veterans, widows, and children, all of whom depend upon Social Security, depend upon it for about 40 to 70% of their income. Now, making cuts to Social Security would also mean cutting the paychecks to those who really depend upon it and who really need the money, especially for widows who have lost someone in the battlefield. It's important that we make sure those checks are still given to those families to help them through grieving times. So now that we've gone over the problems with making cuts to this, also Republican John Boehner wants to make cuts to Medicare and Social Security, those entitlement programs such as those, but we should really focus on other entitlement programs to make those cuts. And so now, finally, first, I argued with you how this current status quo for dealing with the fiscal plan will actually hurt the economy. Second, I argued that Obama's fiscal plan is the best solution to deal with this budget deficit. And third, I argued that making cuts to Medicare and Social Security is not the answer to helping reduce the deficit over the next decade. I hope that you can make the right decision and you support Obama's plan, because the $16.4 trillion deficit is not a problem that can be solved overnight. We need to find a plan to start reducing it now. And over the years, by the time the next generation comes in, that we have this problem squared away. And taxing the wealthier is a good idea. It may not pay off the debt the quickest, but it will be the first step towards reducing the debt. And also, Obama is willing to make budget cuts with Republicans on certain entitlement programs so that we make sure that the money is being spent on things like Social Security and Medicare instead of programs that we don't even know about and have become obsolete at this point. We make sure the money goes where it needs to be. Thank you.